Hey everybody, how you doing? I'm Tom Angleberger. I'm the author of The Strange Case of Origami Yoda, Chewbacca in the Forest of Fear. That's the mighty Chewbacca in the Forest of Fear. Dee Dee Dodo, Future Spy. And I wanted to talk to you today about writing. Now, I'm not like a writing professor or some kind of literary genius or anything, but I am somebody who's written over 30 books. And I've learned a few things about writing a story. And I thought I would just tell you guys some about this. You can think about it as a class, you can think about it as advice, whatever, however you want to think about it. Just listen to what I've got to say if you want, and maybe it'll help you with your writing a little bit. I always find that a lot of people think writing is sitting down at a blank piece of paper and thinking, I'm going to be creative. Well, maybe some people can do that, but I can't. I never get anywhere that way. That's not how it works for me. I like to think about my stories ahead of time. And when I sit down at the computer, I like to be ready and know what I'm going to write. So, what I want to talk to you about today is some of that thinking about what are you going to write about? What's the story going to be? Some people think that if they have an idea, that that's a story. Like, oh, I've got an idea about a kid that goes to magic school. That's not a story. A story is about what's going to happen to that kid, how it's all going to go, what's going to go wrong, all that stuff. That's the good stuff. So, I want to talk to you today about one kind of way that can help you develop one of those stories. But first, I want us to all have one story that we can refer to. Now, a lot of people probably read Harry Potter that I was just talking about. Other people may have read one of my books, or maybe you've read Cece's book, El Defo, or there's probably a bunch of books that we've all read. But I wanted to have one really short, simple story that we've all read. So I'm going to read you guys a very short story right now. I consider this to be one of the finest comics ever written. It's just one page long, and it's not even a comic book. It's not the comic from a comic book. It's actually the ad from a comic book. The comic is actually an old Star Wars comic of mine, but on the back in the 80s, 70s, and 80s, they would often get these ads for Spalding basketballs. Now, listen, right now, I'm not telling you an ad for Spalding basketballs. I don't actually know if Spalding basketballs are as good as this says they are. But what I do know is that this one page comic is a fantastic one page story. Let's have a look at it. Now, first of all, the artwork is by the incredible Jack Davis. Jack Davis is one of the greatest cartoonists, but right now we're going to focus not on his artwork as much as we are on the story. Let's take a look at the story. It's called Street Ball. And up here, oh, wait a minute, it's actually called Spalding Presents Street Ball with Rick Barry and Dr. J. So there's Dr. J and there's Rick Barry. Now, they were famous NBA basketball stars. Hopefully you've heard of them because they are all-time great players. Anyway, they're walking down the street. You can see they're walking past a chain link fence here. They're probably near a playground, and they're walking up, and this kid spots him and he yells, "Hey, look, it's Rick Barry and Dr. J." You can just imagine how excited this kid is. These are two of the biggest stars in the world at the time. He's so excited. All his other friends are still playing basketball. He's freaking out. Let's see what happens next. Rick Barry says, "Glad to see you're playing with the Spalding rubber ball like I grew up with." And Dr. J says, "Yeah, those vinyl balls are just too slick." Now remember, this is an ad. They're setting up to sell you a product, but they're also telling a really great story here. And so here's the kid. Okay, here's our kid who's got to speak up. Yeah, well, what difference can the ball make? And then Dr. J grabs the ball and says, "My man, for real ball handling, you need that Spalding touch." And he swoops through the air and does a slam dunk, making this kid say, "What moves?" And making this kid say, "He plays up in the lights." And then Rick Barry says, "Now it's my turn, Julius. Swish." This kid says, "A 30-footer." And this kid says, "What a magic touch." Rick Barry says, "You don't need magic. Just practice with the Spalding autograph ball. It's got a rubber cover that you can really get a grip on it. And the kid says, and this is really the end of the story. The kid says, "I believe it. I believe it." And then Dr. J comes in with the more of the advertising thing. But this is really the end of the story here is, "I believe it. I believe it." So why did I read you this story? Now, obviously, this is not great literature. I do think it's a great advertisement, but it's not great literature. But it is a simple story, and I think it's a good story. It has a beginning, a middle, and an end. We'll probably talk about that another week. That's so important. How you begin your story, how you end it, all that kind of stuff. But what I specifically want to talk about this week is wish fulfillment. Now, wish fulfillment means somebody is having their wish come true. All right. So just imagine that you're a kid in the 70s and you go down to the basketball court all the time and you play basketball with your buddies. What would your wish be? Well, you might have two wishes. One wish would be, wow, you wish you were as good as Dr. J and Rick Barry. And also, hey, you wish you could meet Dr. J and Rick Barry. So this is going to make one of those come true. And the first thing it's going to do is it's going to make that wish come true. Here they are, Rick Barry and Dr. J are walking right up to your basketball game. And not only are they're going to stop and talk to you. It's a dream come true. Wait, they're not just going to talk to you. Dr. J is going to show you one of his patented slam dunks. And Rick Barry's going to shoot a three-pointer from downtown. What a dream come true. What about your other wish? Your wish to be as good as them? Well, that wish isn't as easy, but you know how to do it, right? Just practice with the Spalding autograph ball. It's got the rubber cover, so you can really get a grip on it. So what have we seen here? We've seen that this story works because it makes a wish come true. It makes this little kid's wish come true. In fact, because he's the one that shouted out first, he sort of gets credit for Dr. J and Rick Barry coming by. So I want to talk to you guys. I've got a little list here because I want it to be a little scholarly. There are three different kinds of wish fulfillment. Okay. So actually, before I get into three different ways, let's talk real quick about some other books. Harry Potter. Oh man, there's wishes coming true all over the place. You ever wish you could fly? Harry Potter does it. You ever wish you could turn into something else? Harry Potter does it, or at least Hermione does it. You ever wish that you'd be invited to a different school where everybody was cool? It happens to Harry Potter. He's got a million wishes coming true. How about my own book, Strange Case of Origami Yoda? That's a wish fulfillment book. I wish that when I was in school, I hadn't made so many mistakes. What if I'd had Yoda's advice to help me out? That would be a wish come true if Yoda had been there to help me keep from making so many mistakes. So think about a recent book you've read or even a TV show you've read. Did they fulfill somebody's wish? Well, whose wish did they fulfill? There are three different ways of doing this. You can fulfill the reader's wish. I think that's why Harry Potter flies. I'm not sure Harry Potter himself wanted to fly all that much, but readers want to fly. Everybody wants to fly. Come on, wouldn't it be cool to fly on a broom? Of course it would. So that wish comes true for the reader. Now, then there's the character's wish. In this book here, this character is wishing he could meet Rick Barry and Dr. J. The reader, anybody who was reading a Star Wars comic book in the 70s, probably also wished they could meet Dr. J and Rick Barry. So those are two kinds of wishes. You're making the character's wish come true. You're making the reader's wish come true. Lots of times, it's the same thing will fulfill both wishes. There are lots of books, lots of stories where that's going to happen. There's actually a third kind before I go on. That's fulfilling the author's wish. That's like what I was talking about with Origami Yoda. This fulfilled my wish that I hadn't been such a doofus when I was in middle school. Now, I can't really go back in time and make that wish come true, but I can pretend that it's coming true, and I can make it come true by writing a book about it. So in this book, the author's wish comes true. Dwight turns out to be less of a doofus because of Origami Yoda's power. In fact, all the characters in the story become less of a doofus because of Origami Yoda's powers. So that's how that works. You can think about who's going to be reading your book. What would they like to see happen? You can think about your character. What would they like to see happen? You can think about yourself. What would you like to see happen? Some combination, maybe all three of those, maybe just one, but think about that as you start to write a book. Now, the next thing though is, when are you going to fulfill that wish? In this story, the big wish gets fulfilled in the very first panel, right up at the top. Gee, I wish Rick Barry and Dr. J would come by. Look, here they are. That gets fulfilled right away. But another way of doing it is to delay the wish, so the wish comes true at the end of the story. That would be a different way of doing it, and a lot of books work that way, where the wish doesn't come true until the end of the story. Like take Oliver Twist. Oliver wants to find a home. Oh boy, maybe I shouldn't give you a spoiler in case you've never read Oliver Twist. Well, all right, but let's see. A lot of stories are like that. The wish comes true at the end, and the excitement of the story is, as you follow along, is that wish going to come true or not? So as an author, that's your job. You get to decide on what the wish is, and then you get to decide on whether it's going to come true at the beginning, whether it's going to come true at the end, or whether it's not going to come true at all. That's the power of writing a story. So if we were to take a very simple, basic idea, like, oh man, let's just think of something, just something silly that we could talk about. Let's talk about a monster, like a monster. What would a monster's wish be? Maybe a monster's wish is to climb up the Empire State Building. You could start your story with him on top of the Empire State Building, and then the rest of the story would be what happens after that. Or you could start the story where he's a long way from the Empire State Building and he has to climb up, and the end is he's up on top of the Empire State Building. So just start out, when you think of a character, you've got a character you like, start thinking about what their wish would be. Or maybe think about what your wish would be, or what your reader's wish would be. And that's how a story develops. You can build up a story like that. Now, there's also, just like with Star Wars and the Force, there's also a dark side. There's wish fulfillment, but there's also scaring how should I put this nicely? Scaring the pants off the reader. That's the opposite of wish fulfillment. Fear fulfillment. What are you scared of? What is your reader scared of? What are the characters scared of? To make it a little less scary, let's just say, what would it happen if this, instead of wish fulfillment, what if this was fear fulfillment? Look, it's Rick Barry and Dr. J. Rick Barry and Dr. J stop by and they're like, you kids stink, you're terrible, and then they leave. That would be your greatest fear, having Rick Barry say you're terrible. Or maybe Dr. J says, hey kid, show me your stuff, and you shoot and it's an air ball. Fear fulfillment. So that's the dark side of wish fulfillment. Those are some tools you can use to make a story. I want you to give it a try. You don't even have to write the whole story down if you don't want to. Maybe if a teacher has given you a writing assignment, you would like to, or maybe if you just feel like writing a story. But also just think about it sometime when you got a few minutes. Think about a character. You can pick somebody at random, or you can even think about a character that already exists, or you can just make a character who's a lot like you. That's what I did with Origami Yoda. That character is a lot like me. So just give it a try. Think about a character, then think, what would they want? What would I want for that character? What would the reader want for that character? Or if you want to go to the dark side, what's the last thing in the world they would want? What's the worst thing that could happen to them? So that was my first little lesson, or yakety yak fest about writing. Maybe if you guys like this one, I'll do another one. There's a lot of other things that I've learned I'm still learning a lot. I've written 30 books and I'm still constantly learning how to write a book. Maybe one of these days I'll write a good one. We'll see. Until then, you guys see what you can come up with, and I'll see what I can come up with, and I'll meet you back here sometime. All right. Thanks a lot, everybody. Great talking to you.